What if everything you've built your identity on could suddenly disappear, and what's left is the real you? Most people go their entire lives avoiding that question. They stay busy, distracted, and surrounded by noise. Social media, endless work goals, family obligations, they all keep us looking outward. But sooner or later, life has a way of cutting through the noise. A breakup, a job loss, a health scare, or just one quiet night alone, and suddenly you're face to face with yourself, stripped of titles, roles, and routines. Here's the surprising part. That moment, the one most of us dread, is actually where real transformation begins. You can't change your life until you're honest about who you really are, not who you pretend to be, not who others think you are, but who you are when there's nothing left to hide behind. This is called confronting your true self, and it's the first of several hidden tests we all face, not in public, but in private moments that often pass unnoticed. Think of it like standing in front of a different kind of mirror, not the kind that shows your face, but the kind that reflects your decisions, your regrets, your fears. No one enjoys realizing they've been living by other people's expectations. But this moment of discomfort is exactly where growth starts. The strange truth? Most people fail this test not because they're weak, but because they're unaware it's happening. They assume anxiety or burnout or a midlife crisis is just a phase. But it's really life trying to get their attention, asking, are you really being you? Those who pass the test often describe it like waking up. Things that used to matter don't anymore. They stop chasing validation and start seeking meaning. They let go of the pressure to appear strong and start focusing on being real. And that's just the beginning. This journey includes other tests too. Solitude, letting go, facing loss, and learning to trust the unknown. But they all start with this one question. When everything is stripped away, who are you really? That's where your power lives. Not in what you achieve, but in what you're willing to face when no one's watching. Silence used to be normal. Before constant notifications, before social media, before 24/7 news, silence was just part of life. Today, it feels foreign, even threatening. That's why isolation is one of the most difficult and eye-opening challenges we face. But here's the insight most people miss. Isolation isn't punishment. It's feedback. When all the external input disappears, no background noise, no messages, no scrolling, what surfaces is what's really going on inside. And that's where growth begins. You don't need to be in a cabin in the woods for this to happen. It can be a quiet evening at home, a long walk with no phone, or even 5 minutes sitting still. What matters isn't the setting, it's your ability to stay with your thoughts. Why is this so hard? Because modern life teaches us to escape discomfort instantly. Feeling bored? Check your phone. Feeling anxious? Open Netflix. But when you resist that impulse and choose to sit in the silence, something different happens. You start to notice patterns in your thinking. You hear old beliefs you didn't realize were still running your life. And that's the point. Silence exposes what distraction hides. The first reaction is often discomfort. Your brain wants out. It replays old conversations, dredges up regrets, or floods you with to-do lists. But if you stay with it just a little longer each time, you begin to see those thoughts more clearly. Not to judge them, but to understand them. Where did they come from? Are they even true? Isolation isn't about being alone. It's about becoming aware. The awareness that comes from silence gives you control over your life in a way no productivity app ever could. You stop reacting and start responding. You begin to make choices that reflect your values, not just your habits. People who face this test and stay with it come out clearer, calmer, and more grounded. They understand their triggers, their needs, and their deeper desires. They learn to be their own source of clarity rather than relying on outside noise to guide them. So the real question is, when you're finally left alone with your thoughts, can you stay long enough to hear what they're trying to tell you? Because that's where the transformation begins. Let's be honest, letting go sounds good in theory, but it's one of the hardest things to actually do. Why? Because most of us tie our identity to what we hold on to. That relationship, that goal, that image of who we thought we'd be by now, it's not just something we want, it becomes part of who we are. But here's a wake-up call. Holding on doesn't always mean strength. In fact, sometimes it's the exact reason we're stuck. We stay in friendships that drain us because we don't want to be alone. We pursue goals we no longer care about because we've already invested so much time. We keep replaying past mistakes, thinking we can somehow fix them by feeling guilty enough. But none of that helps. It just keeps us from moving forward. Letting go isn't giving up. It's choosing what actually matters now. Think about it like this. If your hands are full, you can't pick up anything new. Whether it's a mindset, a job, or an old version of yourself, if it's no longer helping you grow, it's holding you back. And until you release it, there's no room for anything better to take its place. Letting go is a decision, not a feeling. You don't have to wait until it feels right to walk away from something that's not working. Waiting for the right emotion usually just keeps you stuck. Letting go starts with a clear, practical choice, followed by action. The feeling comes later. Another thing people get wrong, they think letting go means forgetting or erasing the past. It doesn't. It means acknowledging that the past had its place and now it's over. You can carry the lesson without carrying the weight. Ask yourself this: what are you holding on to that's already gone? What are you afraid will happen if you let it go? And more importantly, what might finally be possible if you did? People who pass this test often feel lighter, not because their life gets easier, but because they stop carrying what isn't theirs anymore. They stop trying to fix what's broken beyond repair. They stop holding space for people who've already moved on. And in that space, something new begins. Letting go is how you get unstuck. So here's the challenge. Look at your life right now. Where is the tension? Where are you forcing it? That's usually where the letting go needs to happen. Not with resentment, not with blame, just with clarity. Because freedom isn't found in holding tighter, it's in knowing when to open your hands. This isn't just a bad day or a rough week. The dark night of the soul feels like your entire foundation has cracked. What used to make sense suddenly doesn't. The people, routines, and goals that once motivated you now feel meaningless. Here's the truth most people don't talk about. This test isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough in disguise. When you're in the middle of it, everything feels wrong. Your confidence disappears. Your energy is gone. You question everything. Your choices, your identity, your purpose. Nothing feels stable, and worst of all, no one seems to understand what you're going through. This isn't something you can fix with a to-do list or a motivational quote. That's what makes it so disorienting. This isn't about solving a problem. It's about surviving a full reset. This storm isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to clear out everything that's no longer real. During this phase, many people try to push through by doing more work, more distractions, more pretending. But this only delays the transformation. The ones who grow from this stage are the ones who stop resisting and start listening. They slow down. They get honest. They stop performing for others and finally ask, what actually matters to me now? There's another layer people miss. Your sense of loss during this test doesn't always come from something being taken away. Often, it's the painful awareness that the person you used to be doesn't fit anymore, and that realization feels like grieving yourself. But it's also the start of becoming someone new, someone real. It's not comfortable, but it's necessary. You don't have to have answers right away. In fact, you're not supposed to. This isn't a phase to master, it's a phase to move through, and the only way out is through. The more you try to escape it, the longer it lasts. But if you stay with it, if you keep showing up even when you feel numb or broken, you'll start to notice a quiet shift. Little things will begin to feel different. You'll notice what drains you and what gives you energy. You'll start caring less about what others think and more about what feels true. That's not weakness. That's realignment. So if you're there right now in the dark, wondering if you're falling apart, know this: you're not broken. And eventually, when the fog lifts, you'll realize something important. You didn't just survive it. You rebuilt from the inside out, not with who you were, but with who you were always meant to be. There comes a point in life when the path ahead disappears. No signs, no guarantees, no clear answers. That's when the test begins, not of strength or intelligence, but of faith, the kind that doesn't rely on evidence. Here's what that really means: moving forward when you have every reason to stop. Most of us are wired to wait until things make sense. We want proof before we commit, clarity before we take action. But life doesn't always work like that. Some of the most important decisions you'll ever make, changing careers, ending a relationship, starting something new, will happen before you're 100% sure. And that uncertainty is where faith lives. Faith in the unseen doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means facing reality and choosing to trust anyway. Think of it like driving in thick fog. You can only see a few feet ahead, but you still move. You trust that the road continues, even when you can't see it. That's how it feels when you're walking through uncertainty in real life. You don't have the full picture, but something inside you says, keep going. Faith isn't just spiritual, it's practical. It shows up in everyday choices. When you apply for a job without knowing if you'll get it. When you say yes to something new, not because you're certain, but because you're willing to find out. When you make a decision based on values, not guarantees. The hard part is accepting that you won't feel ready. Most people wait for confidence to show up before they act. But in reality, confidence is often what comes after the leap, not before it. Another thing to understand, faith isn't loud. It doesn't always come with a big emotional push. Sometimes it's quiet. A small voice saying, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step. People who pass this test don't have superhuman belief. What they have is consistency. They take small, steady steps, even while afraid. They make peace with not knowing, because they know that uncertainty doesn't mean failure. It means growth is happening. So here's the real question. When everything around you feels unclear, can you move anyway? Can you act on what you believe is right, even when there's no reward yet? Because that's what real faith is. Trusting that the path will show itself as you walk it. Awakening isn't some magical moment where everything clicks. It's a slow shift, one you often don't notice until you look back and realize you're no longer living the way you used to. At its core, awakening is about seeing clearly. Not just the world, but yourself, your patterns, your values, your choices. You stop living on autopilot. You stop measuring your life by external milestones, and you start asking different questions. What actually matters to me? What kind of life feels honest? Not impressive, but real. Awakening doesn't add more to your life. It removes what was never really you. You start shedding roles, beliefs, habits, even relationships that no longer align. You become more focused, less reactive. You stop chasing things just because the world says you should. And you start building a life that feels aligned with who you really are. But here's what makes this test difficult. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. No one hands you a certificate that says you've awakened. There's no public recognition. Often, the only sign is a quiet, growing discomfort with the version of yourself that used to feel normal. You might feel out of step with your old goals. Conversations you once enjoyed might start to feel shallow. You might crave more solitude, more honesty, more intention. That's not something going wrong. That's awakening. This process can feel lonely, not because you're alone, but because you're becoming someone new, and that takes time to integrate. You may lose some connections. You may question everything. That's okay. Clarity often costs comfort, but what you gain is worth it. You begin to live from the inside out. You no longer need external permission to be who you are. You stop performing and start existing. You learn to trust your intuition. You speak more honestly. You set better boundaries. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. And most importantly, you stop living to prove and start living to feel. Awakening doesn't mean you're done. It means you've finally begun to live consciously, to act with intention, to grow on purpose instead of by accident. So ask yourself right now, what have I outgrown but haven't yet released? What truth am I ready to stop avoiding? And what would my life look like if I stopped chasing and started aligning? Because awakening isn't the end of your journey. It's the point where you finally start walking it awake.